Hello, everybody. We seem to not have the intro today, which is perfectly fine. You've seen it before. You're gonna see it next week. It happens. This is also a very special episode. This is sort of almost like a crossover episode of Rokk Players. As usual, I'm here. We don't have a Holtz today. Holtz is busy today with other stuff. We don't have Rokk today. He's also busy with other stuff and also not feeling very well. However, I do have a very special guest. I have Max from Outright Games. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to be here.
So tell us, Max, what do you do at Outright?
So at Outright Games, I look after predominantly everything cloud gaming and subscription gaming. I joined the company in 2020, just as we were starting to move into the space, and I've been here ever since. Can't get rid of me.
I mean, at this point, why would they? I mean, you've been doing pretty well on cloud, haven't you?
We've been doing really good. It's a really fun area to work in. I am obviously slightly biased because it's the area
So
that
am
I
I.
work in. But it's great fun, and yes, it's been a really successful growth area for us.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Do you have kids yourself? Because you're working
I
with kids
I
games for the most
don't.
part.
I'm
Really, that's interesting.
no, I'm
Considering,
actually getting married in August next year.
congrats.
So we'll see after that.
You have a busy year
Maybe
ahead of you
sooner.
then.
I've got a very busy year ahead of me. Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the latter stages of planning for the wedding, and then exciting stuff. Hoping to get a honeymoon in, bit of a holiday, um,
Nice.
and then it will
Well
be
deserved
full steam
at
ahead of
that
work.
point.
Hey, I
So
hope so.
I gotta ask then, because you don't have kids, but I mean, Outright Games is predominantly or exclusively almost like family games and kids games. Like how is it to work with that sort of thing when you don't have any yourself?
Do you know what? It's interesting because what I've actually found is it's almost like been entering a completely new world for me. A world that obviously I'd have absolutely no reason to know about these fantastic licenses that we work with, know about actually what it takes and how mindful the process is to create a game that's suitable for the whole family, particularly with young kids. And it's been amazing. And the thing is, and I think everybody in Outright Games is very similar. The more that we all learn together, and the more we progress, and the better we get at making these fantastic games, um, the more passionate we become. You know, it's every passing year of Outright Games, you think, well, we couldn't possibly get any more enthusiastic than we are about this. We couldn't get more passionate, and it just seems to ramp up year after year after year.
Sounds like a fun place to work at then.
It is.
Uh, yeah, and also hi to everyone in chat. And if you have any questions for Max, type them in chat, and then we'll get to them. Hopefully, probably. I won't make any promises depending on what the questions are, but but we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have in chat as well. But so like you've been at Outright for 2 years now then, and
Yeah.
Outright started. Is it was it 2016 if I remember correctly?
Yeah. So formed in 2016 by Terry Mallum, his daughter Stephanie, and his son Terry Jr. Um, and it's an amazing story, the start of Outright Games, because Terry really, um, he targeted it on the fact that there were all these brands that kids absolutely love all around the world, and actually no one was really being able to really nail making um, games for them that were really high quality. I think licensed games had a little bit of a reputation, perhaps
Yeah.
that that they, they weren't always the same quality as original IP. And Terry said, actually, let's start to do this. We owe it to the kids that are absolutely loving these huge IPs to create some interactive experiences for them. And I think one thing that he realized that it is always, I think it's really pertinent. I think about it a lot. Is that we're in quite a unique time in the gaming space. You know, we're in probably the first generation where particularly young parents that are starting families, they grew up with gaming as a very regular and important part of their social lives, of their downtime and their enjoyment time. And I think what Terry realized very early on was that there's a real desire from parents to introduce their kids to the same experiences that brought them joy, and to carry on and be able to play games with them, and know that there's actually a very safe space for them to start their first steps into gaming.
Yeah. Um, but like, do you know what like do you know how like how did he come to that realization? Do you know that, or is it something that I would just at some
Oh,
point have to ask him?
I'll tell you what, I think that is probably a perfect no, a perfect next interview. See if we can get
Yeah,
Terry on.
yeah, that would be so fun. His brain. Um, so like, which license was the first one then
So the
for
first
like?
license, we the first title we launched was in 2017, and that was Ben 10. Ben
Oh, that
10
was
is
the first one.
obviously
Okay.
a absolutely huge game, and do you know what? It's we are now what 5 years on, and it's still a really popular game. I mean, I still enjoy playing it on the cloud side. We've got it on numerous cloud gaming platforms, and it's still hugely successful. It's obviously the Ben 10 brand is huge.
Yeah, it's a
It's
big brand.
become a true evergreen now. I'd say Ben 10. So
Yeah, that's
um,
nice to have
so
in the
yeah,
backlog.
it was a good one to start with for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my first the first time I came across outright games was with the first Paw Patrol game you did. Because at that point my
Absolutely.
kids were like my son especially was really into Paw Patrol at that point, and we got it for PS4. And it was one of those like it's I mean it was compared to the compared to the newer ones, like the newer ones are so much better than the first one. But I mean, even then, it was like, yeah, this is like it's a good game for kids his age. I mean, it's way too easy for me. Like for me, it's like not even a challenge, but obviously, but for someone like for a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, it was just kind of perfect. And he really, like helped him to learn the controllers, and then obviously, I mean, comparing it to the ones that you've released since, it's kind of night and day. But I mean, I assume you learn by doing. So that is
Yeah,
to be expected, I
definitely.
suppose.
It's always, I think, all of us at OG take a huge amount of pride in looking at, you know, just that we continue to improve year on year on year. And we've always started with the family and the kids in mind, right? We've wanted things to be, we've wanted our games to be really, really accessible. We wanted our titles to really lean into the IP that we're working with, because that our licensors, they're trusting us with these brands that are genuinely loved. I think it's very easy to look at this as, well, this brand is worth X and Y, but at the end of this, there's kids and families that absolutely love these brands. They're
Oh yeah,
engaging with these brands in so many different ways, and I think we've always been really aware of just how big the responsibility is to do those brands justice, to actually make sure that you're the kids and families together, they're playing a game that is representative of the brand, that they feel like they're getting a consistent experience they do with the show or with the movie or with the book. And I think we continue to get better than that, and I think it's always a learning process, and one that the aim is to perfect it, right? The aim is to get as close to perfection with that as we possibly can.
yeah. Um, so like, so obviously you work with a bunch of different really big licenses at this point. Like how do you even how do you even get like how does that happen? Like how does the company and I mean especially when you started out, but also I mean you did nowadays. Like how does I mean you're how many are you in the company? You're
Oh, we are probably approaching. It's got to be approaching 150 now across
yeah, so it's
across the
so
group.
quite sizable
Yeah, yeah.
sizable, but still compared to the Ubisoft solo, where it's you're a small publisher in a big sense. In a lot of like, so how does a small publisher like how do you start that journey with like let's say Paw Patrol for example? Like how did that even how does something like go about?
Well, I tell you what, it's Paw Patrol was before my time at OG, so I'm only going to be able to give you the very short story. And obviously, as with everything like this, I can make it sound more or less exciting, but it is a cool story. So we have an absolutely brilliant head of business development, Terry Mallon Wallace, or Terry Jr. as we call him. So Terry, who founded the company, his son, and he is just incredible at building relationships and building trust between the licensors. I think that's the huge thing that has enabled us to work with the greatest family and kids licenses in the world. It's that we've developed this real culture of trust with the licensors, and they know that we're going to take care of their brands. With Paw Patrol, I wish that I could say there was some, magic moment, or there was some moment that really sealed it. It was just persistent hard work, and Terry Jr. was very, very good at reassuring the licensor, saying, we know how big a deal this is, and we know how much we've got to look after this brand. And it paid off. Persistence paid off, and Paw Patrol on a Roll was it still is a huge title for us. Paw Patrol as a franchise, obviously still huge for Outright Games and
for everyone.
For everybody around the world, right? It is. Yeah. It's such a cultural phenomenon, Paw Patrol, and we're now at 4 games, and hope to continue that relationship for the future, because we love working on the Paw games for sure.
Yeah, but so which obviously you work with some licensees yourself then. Is it anyone that you've signed yourself or responsible for getting on board, or they can tell us how you went from first contact to?
Yeah, unfortunately not. See, I have to leave that to people that are much cleverer than me, and much better at that side of the business. I mean, my focus is really much further down the line. So I tend to work with I work with predominantly telecommunications companies now, and I'm really at the end point of once we've worked with the licensors and created these games and they're out there in the world, it's trying to expand the audience as much as possible by making agreement with cloud partners.
So that was a fun question from or statement that is also a question from NINJAGUYX in chat. How do you how is it working with the license, since you can't really derive from the vision of the series?
Do you know what? It's I suppose you can look at it in 2 different ways. You can look at it as you're quite restricted because you've got to work within the boundaries of that license. But actually, I think the attitude that we have at OG, and we've got a fantastic team of producers. We've got teams of producers that are so passionate about what they do, and because we've got such great relationships with the licensors, and because our team do a huge amount of research. Once we know we're going to be creating a game for a brand, the project manager will be living and breathing that brand, as long as that game's in development. Yeah. To the point that actually working closely together, it's of course it's a challenge. It's not easy, but the aim is actually let's keep it as true to that as possible, and that becomes a challenge in itself. It's not that it's hard or it's difficult because you can't go off the rails. You don't want to, because you want to create something that's really faithful to the source material.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that if you don't, then you don't really capture that audience in the way you maybe want to.
No, absolutely.
I mean, a 6-year-old isn't gonna go like, oh, this isn't the DreamWorks Dragons that I know and love, but it's sort of. So I'm still to them, they want Toothless. They want the things they know and love. Exactly. in a way that we adults are a bit more I mean, it's an adaptation. It's fine. They don't really get to that point.
No, definitely, and we actually do a lot of testing all the way through creating these games with focus groups, and we find consistently that kids, they don't hold back on feedback if something's not working for them, or if
I can imagine that's
it's great. It's great because it's great because I think kids have a way with feedback of being very straightforward with it. You don't kind of have to second guess what someone means. They will say, "I didn't like that. No, that character's not like that. Like he or she, they is in the TV show." They're very happy to say that. So it's great. And you know what? Those focus groups are really, really invaluable to creating the finished product. I mean, one of the best examples I've got is my friend Peppa Pig. Um, the best compliments that I ever hear about that game is when you see a family playing it together or a kid playing it, and I hear it so often. I've got friends with kids that play it, and they say it feels like I'm in Peppa Pig. It feels like I'm in the show, and that's exactly what our team were trying to create. We said, what is the best way to present Peppa Pig for a gaming audience? Well, we want it to feel like an interactive episode of Peppa Pig, and it was brilliant to see that come to life, see that brief, and actually achieve it was just superb. And I still, every time we get successes like that, it never really gets old. It's always exciting. It's
Yeah.
always great to
And I
see.
mean, and I really like honestly that here I suppose here that feedback must be one of the best things you can hear from a kid. I mean, when I grew up and when I watched Pokemon as a kid, I wanted to play a game, Pokemon game, where I lived out the series, like
Mm.
just like it is on the series. Like it's an interactive series, and I mean the Pokemon games are very different from the show. They're still great games, but I mean it's two separate things. So that has to be great feedback to get. So, but you said that you work mostly with telecom companies and for cloud. So obviously you were quite early on working with Stadia. Um,
Mm.
so I mean let's just start there. I mean I think everyone most or everyone in chat is probably agreeing that I mean Stadia it was great. Rest in peace. It's sad to
Mm.
see it going, but like how was the journey with Stadia for you guys
Do you know what?
from
It's
start to finish?
from start to finish. Stadia were, and I'm not just saying this. They were a real pleasure to work with. The Stadians that we work with are key contacts, and I would speak with our key contacts really regularly, at least once every couple of weeks. Um, and they so believed in Stadia. They so believed in this platform that, and I think, whatever people say about Stadia and the successes or the failures and obviously the eventual announced closure, I do think that in years to come we'll look at Stadia very differently from how perhaps it's being commentated on now. I think Stadia deserves a lot of credit for launching what was still relatively niche. I mean, pure cloud delivery, and actually making it well known, making it hit the headlines, and making people aware that there was this different avenue to play where you weren't necessarily reliant on hardware. I think perhaps it's I think when people want something, they want a service that is so great, and I think Stadia showed real glimpses of that. It's very easy to be critical, but you can look at some of the things Stadia did incredibly. I always roll out every time Cyberpunk 2077 for a significant amount of time. You could argue the best experience you could get playing Cyberpunk was on Stadia because there was major
Yeah,
hardware
definitely.
shortages, and the previous generation of consoles they couldn't deliver the game as it was intended to be played. Um, and I think that
And even on like
those,
a PS5, the experience was better on Stadia.
yeah,
I mean,
it
unless you had a
was
15,000 Swedish crowns, like £2,000 super PC, Stadia was the best option. Like that is just as simple as it was.
yeah, and I think it's in all of the noise, it's quite easy to forget successes like that. And I think what Stadia did show, what it did succeed in doing was it showed that it's no longer inconceivable that there will not be a day where cloud delivery is completely indistinguishable from local delivery. That day will come eventually. I don't think we're anywhere near there yet consistently. I think there's a lot of catching up to do in just infrastructure that is coming, but I
Yeah, I
think the
mean,
consumer demand is there.
especially in like in certain countries, it's like the US. It's definitely, and I mean, here in Sweden we are very lucky to have very strong IT infrastructure because the government made it a focus like 20 years ago, and it paid off. So yeah, but like how did you first start working with Stadia then? Like,
As with most things, a lot of networking. So our biz dev teams and we obviously knew Stadia was on our radar for quite some time, and we got an introduction, started speaking, and said, look, we think that there's a gap here in Stadia. You're aggressively pursuing core content and having some success there, but what are you doing when the adults are not playing and their kids are in front of the television with the Chromecast, or they're in front of the computer, or they're on mobile? Where is the family time? Where's the family moments that you need to create, and where is the kids content? And to their credit, sometimes with some partners it's a little bit of a convincing game, but Stadia got it very, very quickly, and they said, yes, we definitely want to do this. And sure enough, it wasn't, I'm trying to remember how long we were in the relationship for before it must have been within 3 months we had reached the point that it was basically a given that we were porting everything, at least on the Stadia store side, and then starting to put some of the back catalogue and then even more recent titles into the pro service.
yeah. So question from NINJAGUYX. What was your reaction when you heard of the shutdown?
I was really, really disappointed. Disappointed seems like such a inadequate word. I was gutted, mostly because and you'll know what it's like in our industry in gaming. It's so close knit, and
Yeah.
there are people still at Stadia. Thankfully, a lot of my contacts are they're still with Google, but I was really upset for them, and like I said, whatever the commentary around Stadia was, the Stadians there, they genuinely believed in that platform. They really believed in the future of it, and they believed that, and they were doing some fantastically innovative work. So I was really upset for them. Obviously, I was disappointed for Outright Games because it was a very, very successful relationship for us. Commercially, it was doing very well, and also reception from the fans, from reception from the gamers playing on Stadia that were interacting with our content was overwhelmingly positive. So it was disappointing, but like anything, if these things happen, nothing's a guarantee in our industry, and we just hope that cloud as a whole continues to rise despite losing Stadia.
Yeah. So agreed. So which was the first game that you released on Pro? Then I'm trying to. I can't really remember myself, but
Ooh, now you're testing
was
me.
it?
You're really testing me.
I'm testing myself.
You're really
I don't remember.
Do you know what
Like I don't know. Spirit was
we
one of the
actually
first
released a
ones, but
batch. It was a batch
yeah.
of games. I think we
Right.
released 3
It was like
titles first month.
yeah. So
And that would
how
have
did that
been
go? How did that go down? But like first of all, like how did you make that decision, and also how did it land in the company after? Like how did it was the reception, both internally and externally?
we felt. Do you know what? We felt really, really confident going into the relationship with Stadia, and I think it's always interesting when I get asked questions like this, because from an outside perspective, outside of Outright Games and the discussions we have with Stadia, it looks like, well, one day there's no Outright Games presence on Stadia, and the next minute there's 3 games there. But we had a lot of time to plan it ahead of time. We were probably talking for 3 or 4 months before the launch of our titles on there. We'd picked the initial batch because it was a good mix. I know that we definitely had a Paw Patrol in there, of course.
Yeah, there was a Paw Patrol. There was a Spirit game, I
and
think.
In
Maybe, or
Spirit
maybe that
Game
was
was in
second
there as
batch.
well. If I believe, off the top of my head, please don't quote me on this, that it was actually Paw Patrol, Spirit, and Transformers were the first three.
Yeah,
Um,
might have been.
and
Ben 10 was also up there, I think, very early.
Ben 10 came very shortly after. So it was great. The thing that we were so excited about was the almost instantaneous reaction. And we got messages from Stadia saying, "Wow, the reception for these games has been really, really good." And it was such a lovely, amazing conversation because Stadia were kind of bought into us and vice versa, and it was a real true partnership. We Stadia did a lot to highlight our games, and in return, our titles performed really, really well on Stadia.
Yeah, I remember when I think it was like a couple of months after the Broken Arm Games, who makes 100 Days, the one making simulator game. A couple of months after they had been on Pro, they were very I don't really remember the context it happened in, but for some reason they were the CEO that tweeted out some stats and numbers on like this amount of our revenue has come from the different platforms, and this is much we get from Pro, which then sparked a massive thing on within the community of like, hey, all indie devs, look here how profitable this was. How like are you able to know anything about how profitable putting games on Pro was for you?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. So
I mean,
I
I don't
can't.
want
I really,
I don't
yeah.
want
No, I
to
can't.
lose your job
So
here,
I
so
can't.
don't.
I wish I could. I wish I could go into specifics, but all I will say is that Stadia was both in terms of visibility of outright games and commercially, it was a great success for us. And that
Yeah.
was across all titles that we ever released on both the store side and Pro.
So I mean, you're also your games. You have a couple of games on Game Pass. So
Absolutely.
like, did you go was game did you start putting games on Game Pass, or did you start putting games on Pro? Which one happened first?
Do you know what? They were very, very close together. I believe that Stadia came first, but only by a couple of months. I think our Stadia launch was in the August, and then the first Game Pass release was in December.
So
So
did the success of Pro have any impact on jumping onto Game Pass, or?
no, not at all. And this is actually something that we've found generally in the subscription space, is that um, different companies in the space that you would think are obviously that they are competitors.
Yeah.
They actually there seems to be quite a lot of I wouldn't go as far as to say cooperation, but it's a very easy relationship between them. There's not a lot of friction, and it tends to be everyone kind of knows each other because it's everyone knows each other in gaming anyway. And then you've got a really,
Yeah.
really tiny niche within gaming, so everybody really, really knows each other. So it's kind of fun going to an event, right? Because you've got the Game Pass folks that know the Stadia folks,
And so,
all the
oh, it's Steve.
telco folks
Hi.
know each other. So it's and it is like that. There's no it. Of course, there is going to be commercially there's competition there, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that on the ground. So in all honesty, if there was any effect at all, we didn't feel it. We'd been discussing Game Pass around the same sort of time as the Stadia deals, and both went along exactly as they were always planned, regardless of any releases that came on Pro first.
So I mean, obviously, you guys have built up quite a sizable library of games over the years.
Yeah.
So have you have you considered any doing something like, I mean, Ubisoft has their Ubisoft Plus subscription and seem to be I mean, they did go cross-platform between PC and cloud, but Stadia and Luna, but I mean, it seems very much like they are working on bringing Ubisoft Plus to consoles as well. Like, have you talked anything internally about like entertaining that idea of doing like outright subscription?
I think we always take the stance that we're young still in this space. at the moment, I can say there's no immediate plans, absolutely not in the short or medium term. And we're really committed to working with our partners, and we have great partnerships. We have really, really good relationships with these companies in the subscription and cloud space. And our focus is on continuing to build those. It's continuing to
Yeah.
build content, and we see cloud gaming in particular, and particularly subscription cloud gaming, as it's got a very low barrier to entry. It's a bit of an equalizer, particularly in we've kind of touched on it already, particularly in certain nations where perhaps console ownership is much lower than it is in, say, the US market, the UK market, the European market. So it's great that there's so many different partners that we are supporting. So there's so many options for the end player. Most players should be able to find a cloud subscription platform that will feature at least one of our games now, which is brilliant.
Yeah. So, I mean, with Game Pass on if you play on a touch device with cloud, you have some really, really impressive implementations of the touch interfaces. And I should know I've done an extensive job testing all of them, not just your games, but all games with touch interface, taking me well over 4 months at this point.
Wow.
I mean, I'm testing like 5 minutes each, but still, just to get an idea of like how well this implementation work. And I think you might be the publisher with the most recommended games on that list. So
Wow.
first of all, well done. But also,
Thank you
like
very much.
how did you do that, so to speak? Like how did you get there?
Again, it's the answer truly is that people a lot cleverer than me. So we've got a really, really talented team, and it's only a very small team that work on, a small project team that work on everything cloud gaming, including the Game Pass deal, and more specifically in this case with the touch controls, the xCloud inclusions, and they just worked incredibly hard. And most importantly in all of that was the amount of support that we get from Microsoft is incredible. We've got such a good relationship with them, and as such, the mix of our people on the technical side and Microsoft support. I mean, Microsoft were available at all times to talk about this, and really, they did a lot of the work on creating these overlays, and we provided the controller maps and whatever, and they implemented it. And both sides were really insistent that we brought that functionality. Microsoft were, this needs to be in it. OG said we absolutely agree. And the end result is a testament to reducing the barriers to entry even further. So
Yeah,
I'm so
I mean,
pleased to hear that
especially
I'm
with
so
like
pleased when I hear it's been well received.
yeah, I mean, especially with Peppa Pig, the implementation there is like, I mean, because it is a simple game, and it's supposed to be a simple game in a big sense. Like
Of course.
it's not meant to be like a complex controller. So the fact that you don't just have that single one stick and like I think it's two buttons on Peppa Pig and three buttons on the Paw Patrol games. Like it's just brilliant. So like, do you plan to bring touch control of your games that you have on Game Pass? 'Cause I know there are some
Certainly,
that don't have it currently.
yeah. So certainly the plan is going forwards that any games that do end up on the service, it tends to be case by case conversation with Microsoft, and I think both sides are generally keen. It makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Because particularly the games that perhaps skew a little younger, that just increases accessibility by such a huge amount. Um,
yeah.
when
And
you've
I
got,
mean, I'm just picturing the situation. I mean, the whole family's out to dinner on some restaurant. Obviously, the kids are gonna finish eating in 5 minutes, and then they're gonna get bored. And we just being said like, here you go, like, and play a story with Peppa Pig to get like here on my phone right now, and it's just it's I mean, I kind of wish I'm kind of looking forward to the next time I'm out on a restaurant so I can do that, give that experience to my kids, because looking forward to testing that out
yeah, I
in
love
that
it.
theory out in practice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great, and that
so yeah,
is, that's something that um, it's one of the reasons I'm so excited being in cloud, because that wasn't necessarily possible before, right? You would have your very clearly defined mobile games. You'd have your very clearly defined console games.
Yeah, and most of those
With
mobile games, honestly, I mean, I love mobile as a genre, but most of them are honestly not great. There's 90% crap on mobile, and then there's 10% really good games. But yeah,
yeah, we're just it's I think that we've got a real ambition at Outright Games that any way at all that we can make our titles more accessible, any way that we can reduce the barriers to entry, any ways that we can get our titles in the hands of more people that may not have had the opportunity to play them before, then we're always going to chase after that,
yeah,
because not only does it make, of course it makes commercial sense, that goes without saying, but also, I none of us at Outright Games want any kids or families that absolutely love a certain brand to be like, well, hang on a minute, I can't experience that. We can't play that. And that's what Cloud's doing. Cloud is
yeah.
just is breaking down those barriers, and that's why it's the cool. Unbiased, obviously. That's why it is
Yeah, I mean, so
the coolest place to work in for me. I
it is
absolutely love
cool.
it.
I mean, I showed off GeForce Now to two colleagues at work today when I was finally in the office for a change, and like none of them are, I would say, are gamers. Like they play games okay. One of them was like, yeah, I haven't gamed since like I was in college. And I mean, I picked Guild Wars, which is a, like 17-year-old game. Incidentally, my favorite game. But I mean, just to show them like this works. And they were blown away by it,
Absolutely.
by the whole concept. So I mean, you don't even have to be biased like we are to think it's really really cool. I think everyone who sees it thinks it's cool.
Absolutely. And
Um,
I think one of the big things where there's a real shift in the mood on cloud gaming generally, and I think xCloud can take a lot of credit for this,
yeah,
is now it's really, really easy to try it. People are genuinely amazed at just how good it is. And even me, and I'm in the sector, but I I've been playing a lot of Game Pass. In fact, I bought a Series X on launch, and it was the biggest waste I could have bought, because I haven't once used a disc drive, because Game Pass is so great, and I've been playing all the games now.
yeah,
I hadn't had to go out and buy any discs, right, and any physical games. So, um, but I actually played a whole game, and I was playing it on xCloud, because what I like to do is I'd like to play for an hour on xCloud if it's something that I'm not entirely sure what the game's about, and then I will do the full download and play traditionally. And I had ended up playing like 3 or 4 hours of this game on xCloud, and I genuinely didn't didn't feel the difference.
yeah. I mean, at some
And
point you
that's
just forget
amazing.
it's cloud.
Yeah, of course, and that's
It's just
that's
games.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I mentioned GeForce Now. You don't have a lot of games on PC in general. Some of them are just console exclusives. But do you have any games on GeForce Now at all, or is
Not
it?
on GeForce Now. No. We it's something that we'd like to explore more. It's something that we'd like to do. I think we I do find with GeForce Now that of all of the cloud gaming solutions, it probably skews most core. Um, and
Yeah,
obviously we are fantastic at what we do, but we are most certainly not core. We're not core
yeah, yeah.
gaming. So it's not necessarily the most natural fit, but I think that it would be great to explore that. It's definitely something that we're looking at for sure, and something
Yeah.
that if anybody from GeForce Now is here, give me a call. I'm
I
happy
can.
to have a chat.
I'll see if I can poke the right person if nothing else. Because I mean, just going for myself, even though I don't have time to game anymore. I do still consider myself to be somewhat of that target audience for GeForce Now. But I mean, kids. If I can put my kids in front of an outright game through GeForce Now, then that's a much simpler experience for me because I have it anyway. I use it anyway.
course.
So from a personal standpoint, I would love to see your games come on there as well, because then I can pick them up on
Well,
Steam instead.
I can promise we'll see what we can do. No
Yeah.
promises on the
So
advert, but I
step
promise
I
we'll
know
try.
the step one for developers is check the there's a checkbox to do on the back end of Steam. I think that's step one, and then just obviously talk to them. But if you don't have the email address to their business development team, I can dig it up. I think I do
I
have
appreciate
it
it.
written
I
down somewhere.
appreciate it.
But yeah, so obviously you work a lot with different licenses. Have you have there been any plans to, or like desire internally to make your own IP at some point? Or
So
is it,
at the moment, no. You know, we have such amazing partnerships with our licensors, and you'll notice when you look for our catalog that we will work with the same licensors again and again and again. They'll trust us with one of their licenses, then another, and that's something that we're really passionate about. We're passionate about bringing these incredible brands to life through video games. You know, it's fantastic when I look at you know, I'm sorry, I'm looking off screen because I've got all of our games up, so I can
yeah,
see everything on my shelf. So when I'm looking at some of our games, and you think, you know, families absolutely love watching the TV show, or they love going to the movies to see the latest film. The privilege that we've got to then create the video game for that is something we never underestimate, and that is it's our number one commitment. And we love doing that, and we want to do more of that. So at the moment, I'm not going to say Outright Games will never do that. Of course, you can't say that.
yeah,
But at the moment, our focus is on, you know, continuing to bring these amazing brands
yeah.
to life on the video game market.
So I'm a bit curious, like how does the structure look at for you? Because I mean, you do obviously outright. You have the publisher, and like there, and I mean, when you boot up a game from yours, like after the splash screen, there's also a developer splash screen.
Mm.
Like, are those studios? Are they like do you have contracts with them? Are they owned by outright, or like what's the structure there looking like?
So the developers that we work with, we have partnerships with. Um, and we work with a fair few developers, and what we're really, I think, a huge area of improvement for Outright Games, something we're really proud of, is that um, we're starting to really hone in on, we work with this developer for this genre of game. And it's so important to get that match right, when, especially I think when working with brands, where you've got to make sure that the genre of game is very faithful to the brand. And we literally will go along and we will match the studio to the type of game we want to create. We'll match the studio to the IP in question. And you know, it's leading to really great results. I think the when you look at the history of our titles, there, the gameplay is getting better and better, and I think the targeted ages is more and more suitable. And a lot of the credit goes to, you know, our amazing partner developers and our amazing project managers in OG that really take such great care in making sure the genre matches the brand, and then it's in the hands of the right dev doing it.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, you do make like you obviously you have the deals with IPs, but like, do you when you make a new game, does it usually start with like we have this, or some studio or you guys have this idea for a game, and then you find a matching brand, or is it usually the other way around, or?
It's do you know what, usually, I would say the vast majority of the time we always will start with brand first. We'll always start with, okay, let's have a storyboard drawn up all about, you know, let me use Ice Age as an example. We'll have, you know, you've got Scrat as the main character here, and what would it feel like for a kid to be Scrat? What would they like to experience as Scrat? And then you start to build the game around that. Pick the pick the developer that best suits that genre, And in Ice Age Scrat's Nutty Adventure, we ended up with it being a platformer, and of course you're playing as Scrat because that's of course the kids are going to want to play as Scrat,
Yeah,
collecting
of course.
Scrat's acorns, and it often naturally evolves like that, and then the end result, it looks like, oh, that was, of course it was always going to be that game, but there is a lot of thought that goes into it, and a lot of mindfulness, and just I keep saying it comes back to the same thing. We always aim to be true to the brand. We don't want to try and force the brand to be something it's not. We want to create titles that complement it.
Yeah. So like with like obviously you do a bunch of different genres. Which like are there any genres you are you feel like we haven't really found the perfect partner for this, or like either studio wise or brand wise, like a genre that you would like to explore? Because obviously, I mean, I mean, if I take a look at Transformers, for example, that game, I mean, I would never have expected an XCOM game to be something for kids, but it works. So, like,
Yeah,
what are some genres that you would like to explore with, in that regard?
it does. You know what? It's really cool because obviously you can ask a different person at Outright Games, what's your favorite game Outright Games has ever made, and everybody at Outright Games is going to have a different answer. But I can honestly say there's no game that we've made that I haven't thought, do you know what, that was a good game. Every game we've made I thought was decent, and I'm allowed to say that because I'm not the person
Yeah,
that's doing the hard work. So,
yeah,
so I don't have to be modest. They'll be much more modest to say, oh, that one was okay. They're great. They're great games, and our people make
yeah.
incredible games, and our partner developers do a great job. Um, we've done a lot of the major genres now. We've hit a few. I'm looking again and thinking what would appeal to me. I mean, I loved Transformers. I really enjoyed playing through Transformers, and I think it was a big success for us in the sense that the games, obviously we are aiming at a family audience. We are aiming at being accessible to kids, but if you dialed the difficulty up in Transformers, you could enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it as a 31-year-old that doesn't have any kids, and I played it on my own, and I had a really good time with it. So for me, just from a purely selfish point of view, that was great. I'd love to see more of that, and I think it was nice to see the reviews of it's a my first XCOM. I was like, yeah, it's a my first XCOM, and that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean,
So
a great way to get into genre. Like,
yeah,
I mean, looking
definitely.
back at my childhood, I like one of the first. I mean, it wasn't the first game I played, but the first game that I really like played a lot of was Age of Empires. And I mean, now I'm a massive fan of historical strategy games. So I mean, there is some connection there. I mean, if you grow up
Absolutely.
playing XCOM games, even if it's with a Transformer skin on it, you are going to like the genre.
Definitely,
So yeah.
it was cool. I think that was a really cool one because you, you know um, real-time strategy and turn-based strategy games, they're not the most easy to get into, right? There's a
No, definitely not.
there's a very steep learning curve, and I think there was a great deal of success that our team managed to achieve in making that genre that is notorious for being pretty inaccessible, very accessible.
Yeah, I mean that is
Who
an
knows?
achievement in and of itself.
Yeah,
Like,
who knows? Maybe there is that. We've hopefully started the next generation of XCOM players or StarCraft players, and it's great. It's cool to
yeah.
be a part of that. It's cool to be a gateway into core gaming for young kids that as they grow up.
So Primo here thinks Adventures of Chip and Dale would make for a great game.
Oh, I would love that. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Disney, give Max a call tomorrow.
Yes, please do.
So, like, what are some like both you personally, but also for Outright, like, what are some IPs that you would love to work in that you don't work with right now?
Oh, blimey, that's
I mean, I have one that I've been throwing out in the Discord chat, which I'm gonna keep mentioning until
you hit me with yours first. I'm
Bluey,
really
definitely
Bluey.
Bluey. It's the best show on TV. Period.
Do you know what? Bluey is really one of those that it's becoming a real phenomenon, right? People
They
absolutely
are the
love it.
Macy's, like the Macy's balloon thing in the US.
It's
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 crazy.
so popular. I mean, I think you
It's
always
so
know
good.
with, especially with kids shows, you know that it's getting pretty big when for those of us that don't have kids, when you hear about it completely organically, you know that it must be a pretty big deal at that point. So that's one I'll bear in mind. That's exciting. Um, do you know what the in terms of licenses that we would like to work with? It's going to sound like a bit of a cop out. Again, it's going to be a different answer for everybody in OG.
Yeah, yeah,
But this year alone, we've released 11 games. We've released 11 games based on some huge licenses. So the question of, well, what's the dream license to work with? Every single month we're working with for me anyway, we're working with a new dream license, and every month I think, oh, it's not going to get better than this. It can't get better than this, and then it just keeps getting better and better and better.
yeah,
And the licensors trust us with more and more and more. The brands, all of the brands we work with are big, and all of them are so unique that you almost can't kind of do a ranked list because they're all so awesome in different ways. So for me, whatever comes next is the next dream one to work on, because they're always good. They're always really good.
yeah. And I mean, as Primo says here, his daughter loves Bluey too. Changed her stadium name tag to Crazy Bingo even. Um, so I mean, yeah. I can see though Bluey being hard one to find the right genre for because it's so all over the place. And I mean, if anyone watching hasn't seen Bluey, even if you don't have kids, give it a couple of episodes. It's that good. Um, but I mean, to me, like the only way I can see it really working is like mixing It Takes Two with the South Park games. Like I can see that working, but which would be really fun. Like yeah, I mean. I can see. Have you done any outright RPGs yet?
Do you
Like
know
turn-based or real-time
we've put
RPGs?
some we've in a few of our games we've put some real RPG elements in there. One that springs to mind is Troll Hunters. Um,
Yeah,
and then most recently, our new DreamWorks Dragons game has got some real RPG elements. The ability to upgrade your character, and the fact that your performance is therefore going to enable you to unlock new bits and grow in strength. That's something that we're really keen to do, because again, it's kind of coming back to the same thing of being that it sounds a little bit derivative to say my first, but that's kind of what we're doing, right? In a way, is we're teaching kids the fundamentals of games that they're then gonna
yeah,
gonna gonna grow into, and that's great. It's great when we've got systems in our games that you can look at it and you can say, well, do you know what? I can see how with a few extra steps that evolves into the fully fledged RPG system and the fully fledged character creation system. So it's cool doing stuff like that, and it's something that we are doing more regularly actually.
yeah. I mean, I would love to see as a fan of RPG, the RPG in general. It would be fun to see a like full-on my first RPG.
Absolutely,
Branching storylines, dialogue choices, all of it.
that
But
would be
obviously
awesome. I'm a
aimed toward
huge fan of
yeah, that would,
RPGs, so yeah, no, I would love to see that too.
yeah. The Witcher Kids Edition.
Hey,
um, so yeah, so yeah, obviously then you have let's circle back a bit to the like the way the company set up with the partner studios. Like have you had any studio like if one of those studios were to say like we have a great idea for a game but it's not like we like they have. I mean, there's gonna be times where the studios are in between projects when they maybe have a game jam and they go like, "This is a really cool game. Could you help us publish it? Would you publish it? Look into that, or would it be like, let's help you find someone else to release that through, or like how would you go about that? Because I mean, obviously you have your brand thing, like the Outright is the brand of family games, but so if someone was like, yeah, we made this really cool Dark Souls indie thing, like, can you help us get it on the shelves? And it's a really good game. Then I mean, How would
Yeah, I
that
mean,
go about?
in those situations, I mean, we're all very lucky at Outright Games in that we have really, really good networks. And I think something that I'm always keen to do, and other people at OG that are also in kind of biz dev roles and commercial roles are keen to do, is to make sure that network is not niche. I don't just spend all my days only speaking to people that are in the kids and family entertainment
Yeah,
space, right? So, in such situations, we try to help each other out, and I think everybody in the gaming industry does that. Really, I think that's something that is so incredible about being in the games industry. And I'm just about to hit 3 years in the gaming industry, so I'm very, very fresh to it, and I've done all sorts of different jobs, and I've never worked in any industry where people are so genuinely supportive of each other. You sometimes will have this illusion of supporting each other, but people have got their, quite a selfish motive behind it. Whereas gaming, it is genuinely like people love helping each other out, and people love to kind of say, well, I had somebody gave me an introduction to someone at the right time a few years ago, and now I'm paying it forward again. So I think in that sort of situation, if we had a dev that we really enjoyed working with, a really good partner, and they said, we've got this really cool game, it doesn't fit into OG's kind of OG's image and what we're known for doing, then there's enough of us that would be able to, I'm sure we'd be able to get them in touch with someone that could help for sure.
yeah, cool. I'd love to see that. So, but how many studios do you work with currently?
Oh, blimey.
Do we-
That is a very good question. I think we're at least 10, if not
That's a
more than
sizable
that.
number.
Don't quote me on that, because again, that's the people who do the proper work know the answers to those questions. But yeah,
So,
we're at a
but
fair few.
yeah. So, and it's, I mean, I think I remember one of them was Madrid based. So, like, are they all over the world? I'm assuming, or
Yeah, we got different developers everywhere. We do have a fair few developers that work out of Spain.
yeah,
And we've now I say we now, we've had for some time, we've got our Outright Games team in Spain. So a lot of our production team sit in Spain. So there's obviously some real benefits there. They're on the ground and can go and talk to the developers in Spain directly, which is brilliant. I think one of the most important things, I think, is making sure the communication is really, really good when working with a dev. So when we're working with our partner devs, having the ability to visit the offices and vice versa is
yeah, it really
invaluable.
helps.
So it's great to
Yeah.
have that local presence for sure.
So any here in Sweden?
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I don't
Not yet.
think so.
Not yet.
Not yet. Exactly. Not yet. Not yet. Soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to see because I realize there's like this isn't the first time I'm coming across studios based in Spain. It seems to be quite a development scene building there down there. I know
Absolutely.
Paradox Interactive. They've moved one of my favorite games of theirs, Europa Universalis 4. The development of that has been moved to Paradox Tinto, which is also, I think, Madrid based. So it's fun to see it popping up more game
It's a real
scenes.
hotbed for game development.
Yeah.
Spain. Doing some devs in Spain doing some fantastic work. Yeah, it's great. And
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and like it's the same. I mean, I think Sweden was quite early on a massive scene for video game development. We have the big ones. We have like Dice. We have, Minecraft came from here. We have like Avalanche Studios. Ubisoft Massive made some great games down in Malmö. But something like really interesting has been that over the years, obviously we have studios all over the country at this point, but I would say maybe not 90% anymore, maybe more like 75% of those companies are all based in Stockholm, and of those 75% ish is based at the part of Stockholm called Södermalm, and about 75% of those are within 5 minutes walking distance of each other. So.
wow.
So, like, if you go to lunch in certain areas of Södermalm here in Stockholm, you are very likely to bump into at least 5 working.
You're getting a lot of gaming talk
It's
in those areas for lunch, right?
yeah, I know the average Studios and Paradox Interactive, they even share this, like they're in the same building. It's like 2 stairs up from each other.
It's
So
amazing, isn't it? So I always think it's
yeah,
amazing when when a particular area gets a reputation for doing some really innovative stuff in gaming. It almost becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. More and more players
yeah,
come into the game, and it kind of builds on that success for everyone. It's great. It's always great to see.
yeah. There was even a TV show made, like a mini series of I think 6 episodes, 5 episodes, about like the video game industry in Sweden starting from like the 80s and like the demo scenes, and then we're going up
Oh
to
wow!
obviously the things happening now. Unfortunately, it's not available outside of Sweden, and it's not even it doesn't even have the English subtitles. I've been nagging the like the Swedish version of the BBC to like, hey, could you please, like the rest of the world needs to see this. So if they don't soon, I guess I'll have to do it myself.
Well,
Um,
that's it. I
but
think
yeah,
that's a
it's
great that's a great opportunity for you.
yeah,
Either that, or
it's
I'll have to learn Swedish. So
yeah. Unfortunately, at this
I'd love
point,
to see it.
I'll have to do something. I'll see what we can do about that, because it would be great to get that out to the world. Because, and I mean, and the interesting thing is obviously that happens to all countries. Um, but like going back to you, then how does a normal day for Max look?
Oh, blimey!
What do you do
So
as a bit? What do you do as a business developer?
do you know what? As a business developer, it is somebody in business development. I'm going to sound really boring, because when somebody says, "Oh, I'm in business development," you think it's really cool, and you think it's a lot of lunches and it's a lot of whatever. It's a lot of work on LinkedIn. it's it's a
A
lot
lot of
of
meetings.
it's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of phone calls. I actually make a real effort now, because I'm not a morning person at all, right? So
Yeah,
I tend to
me neither.
break my day into two. I tend to try to, when I start work at 8, 9 o'clock, um, I'll start with email, and then I will kind of move into my Excel sheets, because business development is a lot of Excel sheets as well. Get them out the way as quickly as I possibly can. By this point, I'm probably 4 or 5 coffees in, so I'm starting to feel good. And then the vast majority of my day is calls, and that's why I love it. That's why I love my job, because I think it's very easy to overthink business development, and there's books all over the world about it, and the art of the deal, and doing this, doing that. And I think all it comes down to really is relationships. It's relationship building, and I'm so lucky to have met, in a relatively short space of time, so many people that I love spending time with. I absolutely love spending time with our partners. Whenever we go to events, be it most recently, the most recent event I went to was Gamescom, and especially with COVID, I think COVID kind of exacerbated that. Was not being able to catch up in person for 2 years, which was the entire time I'd known some of these people, and having that first
Yeah,
meeting was incredible. So that kind of is a day for me. It's headset on, it's
yeah.
it's in front of a webcam, drinking far too much coffee, um, and chatting to really cool people about really cool games, and really cool cloud gaming services. There's definitely worse jobs to have, for sure. I'm
Yeah,
very,
for
very
sure.
lucky. I'm very lucky.
So what did you do before Outright then? How did you end up at Outright?
So yeah, slightly non-traditional route into looking after subscription and cloud gaming for RI games. Um, I went to university. I think I had a fairly normal journey, in the sense of what a lot of younger people are doing now, where they're like, well, I'm not sure really what I want to do, so I'm just going to go to uni and go and have a good time for a few years. And I stumbled into to biology, so I did a biology undergraduate degree. Loved it so much I had to extend for another year. I hadn't quite had my fill of the student union and all the bars yet, so I then did a master's in environmental consultancy. Was an absolutely terrible environmental consultant for a couple of years. Um, Really bad. I used to work with protected species, and found out 2 weeks in that I have a terrible fear of snakes, which isn't
Not a
ideal
great
when
combo.
you're basically picking them up and moving them to different places for a living.
Yeah, not a
So,
great combo.
so it was not ideal. And then after that, I thought, well, I'll try something else. So I became an insurance broker, and can you believe it? I was an even worse insurance broker than I was an environmental
I don't
consultant.
think anyone could be a good insurance broker, though, to be honest. It's one of
Yeah,
those.
I'm very lucky because I look after because I'm jack of some trades, but definitely master of none. I do look after some of the insurance stuff for OG, and I work with a fantastic broker now. But I was a terrible broker. I was absolutely awful at it, and it was really, it was it was pure chance. I ended up seeing that there was a job at OG. I thought, "Oh, yeah, why not?" And I only started on 4 days a week. I was doing part time. I was kind of easing my way back into the workspace really because I'd been off work for a few months and only really meant to be temporary. And I'm waiting for them to actually figure out that I'm still here and they should have got rid of me because I've just never left. I've just stayed on for 3 years. So
I mean,
yeah, I'm
you must
hoping
be doing something
if
right
I
then.
stick around long enough, then I can stay.
Yeah,
And that was
learn
it.
on the job is job. What I mean,
Yeah, and that's what it was. And that, do you know what?
it's the best
That's
way to do
something
it.
that's so cool about Outright Games. Is the culture that is at Outright Games is so positive in the sense that I remember when Terry gave me my chance. I joined Outright Games to look at efficiencies. I didn't have a clue what efficiencies even meant. To be honest, I was really blagging it, and I'd read something about cloud gaming, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I could quite enjoy that. And I mentioned it to Terry, and I think so many of a very fast growing business where employee count was going up quick. So many leaders would have said, oh, yeah, we'll have a look at it and we'll put it on a list and put it to a panel somewhere. But Terry just turned around and said, okay, you're in charge of that now. Off you go. Go and do something with it.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
yours. Go for it.
amazing. You're like,
Yeah,
what an
and you did
awesome.
well. Obviously,
Well,
like
we're getting there. We're getting there. It's a lot of like I always say, I get to do the fun bit, right? I get to talk to people. I get to talk to people like you about the cool stuff we're
yeah,
doing. I get to talk about fun games and see the games going live. There's people in the background that are doing all of the hard work to actually make it happen. I'm kind of going, yeah, we could do that, and you know,
and the
I,
other was no,
people
no.
must pull out their hair when I say yes, but it's great, and it's such a testament, and it's what I think it's one of the reasons that Outright Games has had such a fantastic success story is because we really have got a culture of you've got an idea, anyone can have an idea from the CEO all the way through to somebody that came into the door. In my case, I'd come through the door about 3 or 4 weeks before, and everything gets listened to. And if it's
Yeah,
a good idea is a good idea, and they'll say, yeah, go do it, which is great. It
it speaks a lot
kept me
to
sticking
the
around, so
leadership
I'm
skills
good.
there.
Yeah.
So a little bird told me too that there was some sort of story here about you, the pictures behind you.
Oh,
Uh,
see this
Someone from your team mentioned that
from
there's
my team. So this is I'm in my home at the moment, my home office. So this wall behind me is all of the rubbish that my long-suffering fiance will not let me put in any other room of the house.
yeah,
So I just have to
that
fill.
shelf.
There you go. See, everyone's got one. I'm
I
sure
have it too.
everybody somewhere has
Yeah,
got like their space
yeah.
where the
I have
partner
all my
is.
maps. Like
Yeah,
I even
it's
have here. Let's see if I can get it off the wall. I mean, I even have a signed picture of an urukai.
that is really cool. See, I'd like that.
But this can't go into the bedroom or the living room, so it has to go somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little bit I like collecting things, and I'm a complete sucker for anything that's signed, and I don't really know why, right? Because it doesn't. I think if it's one of those things, if you think about it a little bit too hard, it starts to make less and less sense. But
Yeah.
anything that's signed, I'm like, yeah, I'll have that. So this is kind of my wall of favorite things. I've got a lot of music memorabilia and a lot of sports memorabilia that just it wouldn't look. Apparently, it wouldn't look tasteful anywhere else in the house. I don't
No,
necessarily agree
I'd
with
say
that.
yours are way more tasteful than mine are. Like
No,
I
yours is
like
looking good.
map of
Yours
Middle
is
Earth. I have like a A map of ancient Rome from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I mean, you have actual
Yours is
art.
a lot more. Yours is a lot more on brand than mine, right? Mine
Yeah.
wouldn't scream is in gaming. Yours is definitely on brand. I like
And as ER Gaming mentions in chat, as a team lead, you are the guy that promises the world and upsets my Scrum meetings.
it. No comment.
um, so yeah, you have. Let's pivot back to Outright then. Um, what's obviously a bunch of things happening in the cloud space currently. How do you see out cloud um, going forward, both in industry wise, but also for you guys?
Yeah, I think as an industry, it's quite an interesting time for cloud. I mean, I do think that the closure of Stadia has perhaps got some players in the space a little bit nervy. Um, I don't necessarily agree that they need to be, but I think naturally it's gonna make
Yeah, yeah,
people nervous
naturally.
when a big player goes. But actually, I'm seeing some of the successes, and they always tend to fly under the radar a little bit. But some of the successes that cloud gaming services that are owned and operated by the telecommunications companies, they're quietly doing really, really well, really well.
Honestly, I can't even. I don't even know which ones are. Like, I know there was this Magenta one in Germany that's closed, but
Gentle
like
went, yeah.
I never heard much about that one. So like what other what are ones are there?
So I mean, I can mention a couple of our big partners in the space. So Um, Orange in France is one of our best partners on the cloud gaming side. And do you know what? They've had their cloud gaming platform out for 12 years. And you think,
Wait,
wow,
what?
has cloud gaming been
I
around that
never.
long?
How have I never heard of this?
And that's the thing. It's crazy. I suppose because it's almost purposely set up as a closed ecosystem, right? Because you have to be in France to even have the opportunity to join the service, and you have to be a subscriber to Orange, Orange TV, internet or phone. So that reduces it further. So it's almost I always kind of to get my head around it. It's almost like it's permanently in a closed beta. That's kind of how it feels. That's how I
Yeah.
rationalize it in my head. But they're doing really really well, and um, they see it as a real value add to their customers that want it. Their customers that are engaging with it absolutely love the service. The service runs incredibly. Um, Obviously, they've got some really good content on there from Outright Games, which helps. But
Yeah.
it's and but in all seriousness, they were earlier than anyone else, earlier than the big players that we're now the multinationals that we're now partnered with. They were the first to really buy into saying, actually, there's loads and loads and loads of competitors in the telco space that are desperately chasing core titles, and they're going after this AA and AAA dream. And actually, we want to do something different. Let's create a service that is family focused. We're going to have a service that is all about families enjoying playing games together. If parents are leaving kids to play on their own, they know that it's safe. They know that they've got a safe space. And it was just it that one was kind of a more dramatic partnership because it really felt like everything aligned and we were kind of in exactly the right mindsets as each other at the right time. Um, and it just aligned so well. First title we launched with them was Paw Patrol on a Roll, and I think even now, and that game has been live on their service for it's got to be coming up to 2.5 years, maybe even 3 years. It still attracts crazy playtime. Hundreds, if not thousands, of hours a month on what
Oh
is,
wow.
in the grand scheme of things, a relatively small service.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
if it's in like one country only, only for a
mm,
subset of the people in that country, only the people who have that subscription, and then out of those, only the ones are one aware of that it even exists, and two are a target audience. I mean, that's big. I gotta
it's
say, like,
it's it's absolutely fantastic, and it's one of the things that this is why I love. I've been so pleased to have the opportunity to come and speak with you because it's something that we don't necessarily shout about very much at OG because it kind of naturally does fly a little bit under the radar. It just does,
Yeah.
because it is niche and it is single territory, and therefore, and then the customers are of a specific company. But
So
we're now at nine titles with Orange, and the
nice.
partnership just grows and grows and grows.
So how does that subscription, because that subscription work then? Is it like you pay a monthly fee to get access to some like cloud gaming in library of family games, or like how what is
Absolutely,
it,
yeah. They
and how much
work on
is
the
it? Like even
they
where
work on the
where
cur-
can you play it?
yeah they work on the curated library model. So they will. It's a set subscription per month. I think their subscription is. I think it's €11.99. I think, um, and they have a catalogue of games. I think they're at around 200, 200 games, and outright are making up a good 10 of those now, 9 or 10 of those. So it's brilliant, and our games do so well on there, and other publishers are having great success in there as well, and that's brilliant. I think it's very easy to look very to look um, to be facing inwards, I suppose, the way to look at it, and go, well, we're having success and that's brilliant. But in order for a cloud gaming platform to be successful, they need a really wide breadth of content on there. It can't just be there's even with our games being brilliant, you couldn't create a cloud gaming service, as a third party and just have one publisher's games on there. It,
No,
it
no,
can
you
work for
need a
publishers that are
mix.
doing it themselves and going direct, but if you're a third party doing it, you need that variety. And I know that other publishers are doing really well as well. And Orange, they they deserve to get a lot more credit and plaudits for their cloud gaming service, which isn't well known outside of France, but it should be, because I think it is kind
Yeah.
of it's a model for how it can sustainably work. It's a model for how it can be a cloud gaming service can be around for a long time sustainably. Publishers are happy, the operator's happy, both sides are making sustainable incremental revenue from it, and it's providing a really high quality service to the end customer, which is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So,
So
if
which
anybody from Orange is here, well done, Orange, because you
yeah.
guys do an amazing job,
So which screens can then play this on? Is it mobile, TV, browser, or?
So they do, with some games they do have mobile functionality. Predominantly, I believe Orange is it's played through set-top boxes on the TV side, or
Oh right, those, yeah.
yeah.
So
So
so yeah, which but so Orange is one. Like how much you said you're working with nine.
yeah,
Um,
we work with
where
I mean
else? Like I never heard
we've
of
had.
this.
Do you know what? Actually, it's interesting because France is a real leader in the telecommunications cloud gaming space.
Huh.
So along with Orange, there are two other telecommunications companies that we work with in France. So we work with it's really cool. We work with the biggest, the second biggest, and the third biggest in France in terms of the size of the
Nice.
telecommunications companies as a
Nice space to
whole.
be in.
Really nice space to be in. And the cool thing is that they all cooperate with each other. There's never ever been any uncomfortable discussions where it's been, well, I want that title, but I don't want them to have it. They all work together. They all know that each other's success will help will help everyone. So that's great. We were until recently working with the biggest telecommunications company in Italy, and we've done work all around the world. Really, I mean, we're just about to launch some new partnerships in the UAE, partnership in Indonesia. We have done work in Hong Kong, and Taiwan. So it's great. It's amazing for
So
us to access
yeah.
some of these markets that we are obviously a global business. We do physical business all around the world. We do digital business worldwide. But of course, there are some territories that we're doing more business in than others. So it's really cool and really interesting for us when we get to work on the cloud side, um, in you know, in some territories where perhaps we do a little bit less on the more traditional side. So it's really great.
So, like, are there any options like that for like obviously most viewers on YouTube in period, but that I think most people in chat right now is probably UK based, Canada based, or US based. Like, are there any ones over there that you're working in with as well, or?
So not at present.
And
I
I don't think there is one in here in Sweden either. I don't. I mean, I have the ear to the ground a little bit to the telco side here in Sweden. I used to work with at the like the Swedish version of Card from Warehouse. So I still have some context with people working in that industry, but I mean, no one here is doing it, and we have like
no.
gigabit 5G in most of the cities. So
I know. I mean, if
it's
there's
crazy.
any country with the infrastructure to do it, then you are there, because I mean,
Yeah, we should do
you're
it.
at the
We're
cutting
not.
edge of it. No, it's interesting because at the moment, no. I obviously I'm going to sit here and say I like to think. I really hope, and I do genuinely think that it's only a matter of time. I think the telcos are waking up to this now as a value added, and I think because I think it's a very different proposition for them than perhaps a, you know, there are companies that are trying to break into the cloud space. I've just seen coming back. Don't forget Blacknut and Care Games. If one of my favorite partners is at Blacknut, and if he thought I'd forgotten him, he would have been very upset with me. So I'm going to say big shout out to both Blacknut and Care Games. Sorry, I was saying. I think the telcos have a very different. They have a very different mindset from perhaps, you know, pure direct to consumer cloud gaming companies, because it's not necessarily about making huge sums of money for them, right? They're making their huge sums of money from selling internet plans, from selling mobile plans,
Yeah, yeah.
TV plans.
It's all about the added value to get people
Absolutely,
to
it's
pick
all
them
about,
and not the competitors.
exactly. It's all about how can we be a differentiator, and I think that's brilliant. And I think that's they're kind of some of the most fun partnerships to work on, because they really love any opportunity to kind of do some cross marketing and highlight the work that we're doing, and highlight the brands, and because of that, licensors really like them, and they tend to be really nice relationships. Not that our relationships aren't nice, all of them are great, but I do love
Yeah,
working with the telcos. I must admit, I really enjoy it.
yeah. So obviously, one of the like promises, like it wasn't really a promise, but one of the like concepts that I think attracted a lot of people, me myself included, to Stadia, for example, was the idea of cloud native games. Oh, and obviously doing cloud native does sort of limit you to the audience currently, at least the audience you can reach. But like, have you what do you guys, both you personally, but also of course outright, think about cloud native?
It's an interesting one, right? I mean, there has been some companies that had limited, you know, some success in doing that. I think for us, we've always been really careful and really mindful of what the cloud gaming opportunity means to us. And I think all too often in cloud, there are kind of two camps. There are the camp that is very much all in on cloud, and they're saying this is going to replace traditional media, and this is the next big thing. And then there's the other camp who, you know, with very good reason, are terrified of that happening. You know, and at
Yeah,
Outright
yeah,
Games,
yeah.
we've said it doesn't need to be like that. There is absolutely a way that the two can coexist. And actually, what we are finding, and we're consistently finding, because of how we manage the catalog, how we manage the timings that games go physical, digital, cloud, that actually it can complement each other, and we're actually extending, you know, the natural life cycle of games through working in cloud and through doing, you know, the cross promotion between cloud and traditional media. And because of that, I don't necessarily see I certainly don't see a scenario where we would make, you know, a game exclusively for a cloud platform, at least in the immediate future. I think when we've based this entire move into this sector around reducing barriers to entry, about kind of being a bit of an equalizer, particularly in as I mentioned, particularly in territories where console and PC ownership is much lower. It would seem kind of almost counterproductive to then, almost put a barrier up to something that fundamentally was there to reduce barriers. So cloud native, I think that, who knows, in terms of the development cycle, there's nothing to be said that we couldn't develop a game entirely through the cloud. But I think in terms of any sort of limited or exclusive release in cloud, not at the moment, definitely.
Yeah. Are you I know, for example, like when COVID hit, Bungie were on
Yeah.
record saying that like Stadia as a like developing on cloud,
Mm.
not for cloud necessarily, but on cloud, made a massive difference, especially in QA. Have you found similar something similar? And also, like, if you have like, do you know, if will those tools still be available to developers after Stadia closes?
I don't know on that. I don't know. I definitely remember I'd seen some stuff out of Bungie when the announcement was made, and I know that they were still using Stadia for dev work and QA work. I don't know is the honest answer of whether they're able to continue using it or not. I think COVID changed the way that all of us work, right? No matter whether you're at the very sharp end of AAA development with some really heavy deadlines, and everyone knows about the discussions around crunch and whatever, or whether you're on the publishing side or whether you're in the distribution side. Everyone very quickly, it kind of felt like almost overnight, that everyone had to find a different way of working, and as such, I think people are more open to different ways of working now. I think that might be one of the I mean, I'm really searching for the silver lining, trying to find a good thing out of COVID, right? But it,
Yeah,
it was
it's
it
it's
was one
shifted
of
a
the
lot of things.
yeah, it was one of the small positives to take from it, is that it almost proved the point that work could be done in different ways, and perhaps even in an industry as innovative as gaming, and gaming tends, as you know, tends to be at the forefront of innovation. Even
Yeah,
we had kind of got a little bit stuck in the same ways of working. So anything that shows that there is different ways to work is amazing. And I think it's really cool that Bungie were doing, their dev work and QA work, for a lot of it exclusively in the cloud throughout COVID. And
yeah,
it's
and I mean, it makes
important that everyone.
sense, honestly.
Mm,
Like,
yeah, of course.
I mean, comparing, like, we have a game, we want some people to test it. I use like internal QA, but also, as you mentioned before, focus groups. I mean, just saying, here is a link, click this link and play the game and tell us what you think. It's way better than here's a copy of the game. Don't share
Mm.
it with anyone because it's secret. Like, it's yeah.
And that's
I
one of
don't
and do you know
see
what
why more people don't use it.
and that's one of the things that's one of the things I loved about Stadia, was that and it was relatively late on before the announcement, but we got in the click to play. You could receive a link and play X number of minutes for free,
Yeah,
and then it would take you to a screen and say, "Do you want to carry on playing?" Go and sign up for Stadia. To the point that they'd done it so well that as long as you had a an email account with Google, it didn't even have to be a Gmail account. Just the fact that any account and most people are logged into Google, right? And it was so
yeah,
seamless, and that was brilliant. And I would have loved our teams to have been able to explore that tool more for focus groups and stuff, as exactly as you said. That's one of the things that was a shame that we didn't have the opportunity to harness that more. And I think
yeah.
there's
Hopefully,
definitely
someone
there's
else picks
definitely
up that.
out there for that. Like, there's definitely um, any cloud gaming companies listening. I think there'd be a huge amount of demand for that. What a great way
Oh
to do
yeah,
focus groups
and also,
seamlessly.
like, honestly, I mean, I can see Microsoft picking that up. I hope they do. And then, I mean, imagine when Starfield releases. You have I mean, it's gonna be billboards all over the place. We know that. But I mean, just put a QR code on the billboard. Like scan this, and you're playing a like the first 30 minutes of the game for free without no like just straight up. That would be so. I mean, that would first of all sell a lot of copies of the game, but also bring a lot of
Mm,
people into cloud. So
definitely.
yeah, like I always feel like I think all of the cloud services have been a bit. Um, I mean, a bit anxious almost to do big marketing pushes for cloud because I mean you don't want to be the service that do a big push and then it's like 5 hour waits. So I mean I
Definitely.
get it, but at the same time like you got to at some point. Um,
Yeah, and definitely, and I understand. I kind of see it from both sides. I think, yeah, it's a huge shame that cloud gaming companies aren't making that push, and equally understand that it's an expensive business in cloud gaming, right?
yeah,
As you all know, I mean, the costs that are involved running a successful cloud gaming service are just crazy. Um, but they, yeah, it's kind of that balancing act, right? And it's almost an inverse relationship there, in that the cloud gaming services, they need to attract a lot of playtime in and a lot of users to be a success. But the more successful they get, the more it costs. So it's kind of
yeah,
that balance has got to be achieved. And I don't necessarily think we're there yet, and I don't think that's down to anyone not performing as well as they could. I just think as infrastructure gets better, hopefully those costs are going to start to come down, and as technology advances, costs will come down, and that's just going to keep making it more viable as well.
yeah. It feels like that sweet spot hasn't really hit yet, but it's like
No,
it feels
definitely
it's
not.
it's been around the corner for like 3 years now. It feels like it's
Yeah,
almost like next year maybe, next year maybe.
we're nearly
And I
there.
guess I'm gonna have to keep saying next year maybe for a few more years. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. It does feel different this time, though. I think
yeah,
I've become a little bit, because I'm slightly geeky. I've become a little bit of a cloud historian, cloud gaming historian, and I've kind of read up about the 3 or 4 times that cloud gaming was gonna be the next big thing, and then it fell over. Um, and from everything that I've read about the the previous times that it was due to be the next thing, this time it feels sustainable now. It feels like the
yeah,
idea is there, the infrastructure is there. There's some really amazing people and amazing companies doing it well. And do you know what? If it is a little bit of a slower build than perhaps was initially expected and what the hype suggested, then I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing, because it's great to see so many people doing it well and building for the long term with it.
yeah,
And there's a lot, and I keep highlighting the smaller companies because I think it's important to. I say smaller companies, sorry, smaller players in the space, um, because they're the ones that they're doing it really, really, really well, and they do need more recognition for it. So
yeah. But it's kind of like with gaming in general. I mean, the big innovation in a lot of sense isn't coming from the big like EAs and like FIFA is never going to be the most innovative game ever.
no,
It's the indie games that do the innovation, and then the big ones make it more accessible for everyone. Like that's the way it's always been. So question from ER Gaming: do you have office tours?
oh, I don't think so. Do you know what? I think that might be the first request we've ever had for an office tour, which is really exciting. I like that.
Yeah. So
I will.
there might be something
I,
going on there.
I can definitely go and ask the question, ER Gaming, for
Yeah.
sure. Definitely.
So keep your DMs open, ER.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Keep them open.
let's see. We have. I see a question popping up in chat. There we go. Can there be a side company for adults called Wrong Games?
Now I can't promise that that one will reach the next pitch meeting at OG. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but it's
It's
maybe
just
not a good idea necessarily. You don't wanna ruin the image.
no,
Um,
definitely not.
yeah. So what are you most excited about in cloud for, moving forward then?
Do you know what I'm always most excited about the consumer experience. it's so easy in a biz dev role, in a sales role. Essentially, I call it biz dev to sound fancy. um, it's easy to get, very, very sidetracked with numbers, and this game has been really commercially successful, and of course that's important. It's massively important when you're in a really competitive space and you're a publisher that's growing. It is really important. But what I do it for is to see the consumer experience get better. So I'm most excited in cloud for hopefully outright games titles being played by more and more people around the world that may otherwise not have had the chance to play it. That's what I'm most excited for, and that's why I'm excited to continue to build new partnerships and develop existing partnerships, because I love I love nothing more than when one of my colleagues, because I'm old and boring. I'm not on Twitter, on Facebook. I can't work them all. I'm on LinkedIn, which is about as exciting as it gets for me now. But I love it when one of my colleagues sends me a message on Teams and says, "Look what I've seen on Twitter," and it's a family playing one of our games together. They've tweeted one of our partners, whether it be an Orange or whether it be, a partner as big as Game Pass, and they're like first time sitting down to play this game together, absolutely loving it, playing as a family. You've got the parents, you've got the kids there playing it together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what all of us at OG do this for, right? It's we are in the business of making people happy, and that is a really, really cool thing, a really amazing thing to have the privilege to do.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. I could be really, really on point and on brand for Cloud and say I'm really looking forward to this innovation and that technical tweak that's gonna increase frame rates by another 10 frames per second, and it's gonna reduce ping. But no, I'm just excited for more people to try it out, see that it's viable, and have fun together playing on
Yeah.
Cloud.
I mean, I think it's now announced a couple of weeks back now that they are. I mean, they do a bunch of their region expansions by having partnerships. So they will go basically to either like a telco or a data center provider in that region. Say we have the tech, you have data centers, and like you have NVIDIA server, like NVIDIA hardware in your data centers, and then they will they will provide the service GeForce Now powered by, and then the partner, and then they do the pricing. It's basically franchising. It's the way they explain it to me. And I mean, they are expanding in South Africa, for example, it's early next year. So I mean, I think they might be the first ones going to Africa. So yeah, that's a good opportunity for you guys then to get your games into the hands of a whole new and try cloud gaming before.
It's
I hope
exciting.
to see
and hopefully now COVID's over, I might get I say it's over, it's not over, is it? But now that we're living with it, and we're, the world is opening up again.
Adapted.
We've adapted. That's the best way to put it. We've adapted to it. Hopefully there'll be, finally a chance for me to go and visit some of these partners in person. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool. I can imagine.
That's something I'm
getting traveling in.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's made me realize there's nothing quite like no matter how good social media gets, and no matter how good particularly office programs like Teams and Slack and Skype get, there's nothing that it doesn't quite reach the same level as face-to-face meetings. I think that's something that no matter how good it gets, you can't replicate. So I'm hoping to go and see some partners next year. That would be great.
Yeah. By the way, do you know, do you usually use the same engines, by the way, for the games?
We generally will use Unity or Unreal, different engines for different genres and different devs, really. But it's almost always Unreal or Unity.
Yeah. So and like obviously, I mean, different IPs have different assets, of course. But like, is there any how much sharing is going on between the studios, both in terms of assets but also knowledge and and like even manpower when needed. Do you do
It's do you
much
know
of
it's
that?
it's a real collaborative effort, because we've been our partner developers, we tend to work with again and again and again. There's been very few relationships where we kind of had a one game and then been done. We tend to work with each other for some years, and therefore our product manager teams and our our product teams and our producers, they get really great working relationships with the developers from the studios. And it's not uncommon that um, that we'll work in tandem, and perhaps one of our producers will go and work very closely with the developer, particularly when we're getting towards the late stages of the development
Yeah.
process, and we're approaching kind of deadlines. It's great. It's a real collaborative process. We absolutely love working with our developers, and I like to think that we must be doing something right, because developers always seem to be happy to work with us again, which is great. That's
Yeah. And not just for the money, of course, but also I mean there has to
well,
be
I hope not
a good
just for the
relationship
money.
there. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
exactly.
I think it
Um,
probably helps, but I think we and I know that, of course I'm going to say it, guest on guest on your show, and I'm going to say it, but we genuinely have awesome people working at OG, and we work with awesome developers. We don't really have any. We don't have any nasty people. We don't have any people that we don't enjoy working with, for sure, which
yeah,
is great.
that's
It's such a fun way to work, and I think it it promotes creativity when everyone is really pulling in the same direction, and everybody has a really good time working with each other. It lets the
yeah.
ideas flow, for sure.
So ER is asking how many developers you have at OG, and I mean I think you said there were 10 studios you were working with
Yeah, I
now,
can.
right?
Like I
Um,
said, don't quote me on that, but
yeah, but like
it's got to be around that, for sure. I'm
yeah,
looking at
but
that.
and then
Looking at
so 10 studios, and the when you said about was it somewhere between 100 and 150 people working at OG you mentioned,
OG.
and that's not that's in OG and not the studios then.
That's in OG. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's in
So
OG.
I would assume this like how big are these studios ish? Like is it
They tend to be on the small to medium side, the
yeah
dev
so
studios.
like
They tend to be smaller but very
10 to
focused teams.
50
Yeah,
ish? Yeah.
yeah,
So let's say you're like let's say one game is for example like yeah like one studio in let's say in the UK is finishing up the next Paw Patrol game for example, and then a you have another game going on, maybe a sequel to the Peppa Pig game for example going on in Madrid, and that's early on. Like, do you do any like if they are like, oh yeah, we kind of need two more artists, 3D artists for the next couple of months? Do you like go, hey, can you lend some, or do you do that sort of collaboration in between the studios?
Do you know what?
Like
I don't know if we've done that to date. I don't think we have between
maybe I
studios.
haven't needed to,
Um,
but
yeah, no, I
which
think
might I
I
suppose.
think that would be that is the reason why. What we tend to do, the process we tend to work on is that um, from kind of start to finish, one of our PMs will live and breathe a project, right? So
Yeah,
they'll be responsible for making sure it's on track, and they'll be in contact with the devs, towards the end, multiple times a day even. So it tends to be, of course, it's a whole team effort, but we're really good at being able to react quickly to things we need to, and move resources around to make sure that we hit the points we need to hit. But um, our PMs are awesome. I don't know how they do it. I wish that I was as organized and able to compartmentalize and actually function as well as they do. I just couldn't do it. There's no way I could do it. So I'm kind of,
yeah,
I mean, there's a bit of a common theme going through this conversation, right? I'm in awe of a lot of people at OG and at our devs, because I know that I could not do I know that I could not do their job at all.
yeah. To be fair, like if you did it to your job, then they wouldn't have a job to do either. So I guess it's a
Oh well,
symbiotic.
I get to have fun for my job, so I get to just chat all day. It's brilliant. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm really lucky, and but as you say, they would say the same thing. They do the producers and the project managers. They do what they absolutely love to do, and it shows
Yeah.
in the results. It shows that they're doing what they love doing. So Everyone's got their place in the success at OG for sure.
So, like, can you mention anything about what you have cooking right now? Like, do you have anything? I mean, I'm not saying you should announce anything, but like, how many games are in development right now? Like,
You're looking for a scoop. You're looking
oh
for
no,
um
not more than like, like it. I mean, I'm assuming there will be more stuff coming in the years to come. So, I mean,
yeah.
how
So
much
what
is
I would
going on?
say is that we're already in mid to late stage development for titles all through next year. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up in next year, 24 and 25, I think. Yeah, think more of the same, more of the biggest family and kids licenses, more games that are really faithful to those brands and really build on the stories that have been told already through other mediums like TV and film.
Yeah,
And we're getting more and more ambitious with every single title we do. We're getting more ambitious,
good.
and
You should always be
I
more
am.
ambitious.
I wish I could talk more on it because I am so excited for next year at OG. I think next year is going to be fantastic. Some of the titles,
Looking forward to
some
that
of the
then.
titles we've got coming up, I am saying to our production team all the time, I cannot wait to get my hands on this. Don't tell me anything about it. I don't want to know about the inner workings. I want it to be a pure first experience for me when I play this game. So we do show and tells kind of once every few weeks at OG where different teams will take on a topic, but often it will be members of the production team giving updates on the process of how we're doing the development of certain games. I actively avoid a couple of titles for next year because I don't want to know the details of them, right? So that's how exciting we're talking for next year. It's going to
Nice.
be fantastic. Really cool.
And I mean, so, I'm assuming there's like both IPs that you have worked with in the past and IPs that we like, and like maybe I can imagine if you, I mean, you've worked with DreamWorks for IPs for quite a while now, and I mean have found a lot of success with those. So I can imagine they will be like, here's another IP you can work with. So yeah, I'm guessing. But are there also some completely new partners in there in the works
Absolutely.
that
So
you haven't done anything with?
I mean, you've got it pretty much spot on. We've got some titles coming out next year that are built on fantastic franchises we've worked with before, and with fantastic licensors we've worked with before.
Yeah. So Peppa
And
Pig 2.
we've also got some brand new territory
Nice.
where we're just starting those relationships, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting. Yeah, I can't wait for you and everyone watching to hear more. And I'm sure there'll be news coming soon from our amazing
So
comms teams.
so then on that topic of like new games coming, like how often do you like, or how much in advance of the estimated release do you announce a game? Like, have you found a sweet spot yet that you enjoy?
Do you know what? I'm probably the wrong person to ask on that because I tend to be involved in the process, even later than the what I call the proper sales guys, the team that are doing the digital and physical sales, that they are concentrating on day one. I very rarely get my hands on a game for day one. So for me, I come in a little bit too late to the process to know the answers to things like that. I'm sure we can get for a follow-up show. We can get we can definitely look to get someone from one of our other teams that will be able to give you a lot more of the cool insight into stuff like this.
Yeah, and I mean, ER is looking forward to 2023 as are most people, I think, in terms of the hints you gave there. But so will like can you say already that the like will all games or most games be cloud enabled going forward? Are you at that point
Do you know
in
what?
some way?
It really depends on a case by case. Of course, when I'm working with partners in the cloud gaming space, particularly on the smaller side, but even on the big multinationals as well. You know, they've got curated catalogs, um, and they've got only got so many slots per year, right? So
Yeah.
so choices inevitably have to be made. You know, if one game is taken, then that's one less slot that's available for the year. And whilst a lot of our partners will have, you know, libraries, and you see it with Game Pass, right? Game Pass is a perfect example. You'll see new titles going in, old titles going out, and there's that kind of cycle that keeps
Yeah.
things moving. But even then, there is limited space. I would love nothing more than to get every single one of our games into every cloud gaming service out there. But it's not necessarily a realistic aim at the moment in the current state, you know, the current state of the cloud
Yeah. Yeah.
industry.
Due to
What I
time,
can what I
like
can
available
promise
slots,
is
of course.
what I can promise is that OG is really committed to working with cloud, and you know, whenever an opportunity arises, you know, we do everything to be able to say yes. Basically, of course it's got to work for the business, it's got to work for the licensor, and it's got to work for the brand. But we're always looking for the opportunity to say yes to it. So I
Yeah.
am certain that we're going to have more great titles hitting cloud gaming services next year.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at, I know that Xbox has been they've been talking for years about how they are going to bring at some point the opportunity to play like the games that you have bought. If they are cloud enabled, you will be able to play them, like even if they're not on Game Pass anymore. You, like
Yeah.
if I buy. So let's say, I mean, if I buy Paw Patrol the Grand Prix, for example, then it circles out of Game Pass, which it might inevitably do at some point, considering that they are rotating games. Then I will, like, if I buy that, then I will be able to play it on cloud at some point. Like will at that point will I be able to, like, will you enable that sort of thing? Or for example, if like if in the future when you inevitably get on GeForce Now, for example, obviously there's more of a you buy there's less of a you pay for a subscription to get the
Yeah,
games.
it's
There's more you
bring
pay
your own,
for
isn't it?
the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when you will you be releasing then games for like trying to make
Yeah.
for most games being and even if it's not like in a like subscription model like Game Pass, is like at some point in some way available on cloud.
Yeah, I mean, I listen. It's always going to be there's always going to be an element of case by case
Yeah, it's
for
always
everything,
yes, sure.
and it has to there has to be a lot of boxes ticked and able to allow us to do that. I would love nothing more than that to be the case for every game, because and
Yeah,
I think it's really cool because it's kind of been a thread that's gone through our whole chat. Is it something that I'm really passionate about in my role at OG looking after cloud is this idea of breaking down the barriers to entry,
yeah,
and that definitely achieves that. So I think, you know, I'm not going to sit here and promise that every single game will be enabled with that, but
yeah. No,
it's
of
a
course,
pretty
and you can't promise that. You never
but
know.
it's a great ambition to have
Yeah,
to say, okay, I'm going to really try to see however many we can do and maximize that. So I would love that, but at
yeah.
the moment I honestly don't know is the honest answer.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
not
think
sure.
my daughter would. I mean, I don't think she will. Like she doesn't really know. I mean, she's 4. She's too young to understand maybe the idea of it. But I think if she were older, she would probably be very annoyed at me for not asking the Cocomelon game that you made. It's only on Switch at the moment.
It
Will
is.
is that a thing? Because like is that that was the platform that suited it best, or is it an exclusivity theory? Will it be coming to other platforms down the line?
The honest answer is I don't know, and
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be people at OG better placed to comment on that. It's been a great game, right? And it was really cool. It was really cool that we were able to do that, and it was really amazing to, you know, I think it's another one that it captured the show really well. It captured I say the show, it captured the shorts really well.
yeah, the thing.
the phenomenon that is Coco Melon.
Yeah,
And
it's been on way too
really,
much over here.
yeah, that was
I'm
really
tired
cool.
of
And
it.
you know what? That's one where I'm really proud of our the team's work on that, because it's one where accessibility was just so it was it was not even a nice to have. It was absolutely needed, because it's such a young game that actually, you know,
Oh, I think did we lose Max, or was it just me that lost Max there? Says no connection on mine, but that might just be me. I hope I hope the rest of you can hear Max. I can't. Um, Seems to be, but hopefully he's back. No, yeah, we've all lost Max. Um, so yeah, this is a great conversation. I'm loving this. Oh damn, we've been going for almost 2 hours already. So yeah, I'll hopefully Max is back in a second. I'm guessing a refresh is gonna solve it for him. But yeah, we should probably start wrapping things up, because this has been going on for quite a while. But this is interesting, right, guys? It's not just me, right, that find this fascinating. Um, and also, thank you so much everyone for joining us. I mean, I'm not gonna stop it right here, but I mean, there's been a lot of love and a lot of great chat going on, great discussion and messages going on in chat. So thanks a lot for joining us, and I hope you're all having a great Thanksgiving. Um, I mean, we don't celebrate over here, so I'm here. But for you guys who do celebrate it, I hope you have a great holiday here. And I hope you find some great deals tomorrow on if you're on the market for something new. Surely I'm sure there are some outright games on good sales over there, all over the place. I've seen. I was looking up for a friend of mine who has a 3.5-year-old who really loves Paw Patrol. I was looking into like maybe finding like what games are available for his collection. So I hope I find some good for outright games titles out there for any platform that you have, and enjoy them on. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. If Max comes back on, then we'll let him say goodbye as well. But in time. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It's been a great fun to do this, and I hope we get to do more of these over time here. Like it's not gonna be a common theme to maybe. I think it's gonna be like whenever we find a slot that works and a developer that wants to do it, then we'll do it. And either as a separate thing or as a instead of the usual show. The usual show will be back next. We'll obviously be back next week, and we have Max back.
I am so sorry. Do you know what? I was amazed that my Wi-Fi survived for as long as it did, and I actually thought, oh my goodness, I've actually made it through 2 hours, and then it went. So that's right. So sorry about that.
No worries. I was just realizing we've gone on for about 2 hours now, so we should probably start wrapping things up and let people
We've been having
move on. Yeah, and I mean it's been great to having you on, man. You're more than welcome to come back anytime, either for another interview or another or just as a regular panelist guest, discussing the news in the cloud gaming space that we do usually on this show.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody that's been watching and listening in. It's been great. It's been a real fun way to spend a Thursday.
Right, I agree. So any message you want to send to the lads in chat before we close it down?
Just thank you so much for listening to me. You know, go on at length about a topic that I absolutely love, and stay tuned for some really amazing stuff coming out of OG. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thank you so much as well. And yeah, don't miss next week's show. Obviously, don't miss the amazing games coming out of Outright next year. And I don't know if there's something else coming out this year, but if there is, then keep an eye out. If you do want a chance to win an Outright game, I think that Rokk is doing a giveaway tomorrow of one of the games. I mentioned earlier in the chat, and also he's doing not only a bunch of giveaways for basically every show that he runs on, which is like every weekday, but also doing a massive Christmas giveaway together with John Scar, our friend over at Fourscar Gaming. Who's doing where you can win a it's Logitech G Cloud, 3 months of GeForce Now 3080 and Game Pass, and also I think it was $100 in Steam Library, and also as the same thing, but instead of the Logitech G Cloud, a gaming Chromebook. So if you want a chance to win those, check out. I think the links are probably in the description or chat or comments. I can't really remember where they are, but it's probably all over the place, or at least they should be. So be sure to dig that up and join those giveaways. And obviously, check out the rest of the things here at Rokk's channel and also my channel. And follow Outright Games on social media so you don't miss any updates from them. And I will see you all next Thursday for a usual news show, which will be maybe less interesting, but I mean, it's there's always gonna be news, except Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, people! I'll now hit the end screen button, and you should see the outro, which is composed by our lovely friend Code Z, specifically for the show. So yeah, Rokk is giving away Bratz and Super Pets, plus playing Bratz before the giveaway tomorrow. So don't miss that. Let's roll the outro.